Hello and welcome to Talking Europe. I'm Armand Georgian in Paris. My guest today is in the top 50 most influential French people, according to Vanity Fair magazine. A highly sought-after economist, Laurence Boone was a top advisor to President François Hollande, a senior official at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD. And this summer, after President Macron's re-election, she joined the government as Secretary of State for European Affairs. Her appointment comes at a sensitive time as Europeans worry about rising living costs and the long-term effects of the war in Ukraine. Minister Boone, thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you for the invitation.
Let's start with the big news from the United Kingdom. You actually met Queen Elizabeth when you were in Reading in the UK, of all places. What was she like?
First, I really would like to express my sympathy for the British people and the people of the Commonwealth. She was, at the time, a very kind person, very surprised to see a French person on campus, but that was the very early years of Erasmus program.
Yeah.
But she spoke French.
Very good French.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I think she's really the pillar, the institutional pillar of the UK, and that shows, especially in this time where the rule of law is sometimes challenged, how important institutions are. So we're very, very sorry to see her leave us.
Obviously, there is going to be a truce in the normal sort of way of doing politics in Britain. Once things start again, what are your hopes for a reset between the UK and Europe? Would you say it's up to Britain to mend fences, if you will, for all the bad feeling of the last couple of years?
So I think the President Macron, Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne, every one of us in the government have always been very clear that the door is open for discussion, that we can have, debate, but on fundamental values, we do agree. Within the G7, the UK is a very strong country fighting against the hybrid war that Russia is leading, both against Ukraine and against us. And that has not changed at all with any government. And then I think at the more national level, Liz Truss has the same issue as any European government, which is how to protect people, firms, against and address the rising energy bill. And just one last point, it's the first thing that she did after having set up her government, to actually put on the table some sort of shield to protect people.
I want to ask you about that shield, because it seems to me that the French government hasn't been very clear in its messaging to French households as to exactly what they can expect this winter. Is there going to be rationing? Will there be mandatory restrictions at certain hours of the day or evening? Can you tell French households what they can expect exactly?
Can you tell me what the weather will be this winter? So the answer depends very much on that. If we have a normal winter with some energy savings, like just paying attention, switching off the light, don't let the water run for hours, don't overheat your place, and just basic, normal, rational things, then we can go through the winter. If the winter is very tough, we may have, like for any winter, but perhaps a little more, to effectively ask some firms, some places to stop heating or stop producing for a couple of hours. But that does exist today. It will just be extended. That's the first thing. The second thing is we have a European solidarity mechanism. So we do import electricity from Germany, for example, and we will export gas to Germany if they need it. So the bottom line is, and sorry for being just a little longer, the bottom line is, if we do those energy savings, and if the winter is normal, the situation will be okay. If we do these energy savings and the winter is tougher, we will have to do a bit more.
It's interesting you mentioned gas exports to Germany. That's already politically quite controversial, that idea in France, isn't it? If it's the end of abundance, people are going to say, well, why are we giving gas to Germany while we have to tighten our belts at home? That's a tricky one.
Yeah, I could ask them, why are they giving us electricity? Because the reality is the solidarity is both way. On the one hand, we do, or we will, and we do normally give gas to Germany or other countries like Belgium, but they do provide us with electricity like they did last year and the year before.
So, sorry, just to go back, Laurence Boone, when you said that some companies will be asked to make savings, and that's already the case. So essentially, households are kind of last in line to be hit, so to speak, but we can't rule out, obviously, like you said, we don't know what the weather's going to be tomorrow. We can't rule out that people will be asked to save energy at home at peak hours.
People are being asked to save energy at peak hours.
But they're
what
not
we
being
do
sanctioned
rule out,
at the moment. They're not being told, if you don't do this, X, Y, and Z will happen to you.
No, because I think we can count on the responsibility of people. Everyone understands what's happening. And everyone knows that this is our contribution, every single one of us, in this fight against Russia.
You say we can count on the responsibility of people. That's what was said at the beginning of COVID. In the end, there had to be mandatory coercion on people.
Look, things evolve. The situation evolved. COVID was one thing. Okay, COVID we knew nothing about at the beginning, so it had to be stricter. This is electricity and gas. It's expanding a system that we do know that has been existing for quite a while. And I think, again, the situation is very different. It's a war against Russia for democracy, for freedom, and for supporting Ukraine. And people have very different motives. And we're not asking horrible things, right? To put the temperature at 19 degrees, that has always been the unspoken rule.
Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission President, the EU Commission President, she's talking about this cap on prices. Who pays for that? Because you mentioned Britain. There's a big debate there. It seems that actually any cap is going to be ultimately passed down to the consumer. So the idea that the consumer doesn't pay as much, it's a bit of an illusion, isn't it? Because in the end, they sort of do end up paying.
So there are two sort of caps. One is a cap on prices of gas that you import from somewhere. And if you put a cap, first, if it's against Russia, Russia will get less revenues. And second, because the electricity price is also linked to gas price, it will be capped as well. And each time we've been discussing such a cap, the price of gas has come down. That's one thing. The second thing is to put a cap on the price at which producers of energy is selling. And there what we're saying is actually you cannot make super large profit. We're going to take some of your profit through this capping system because that money we will then use to compensate consumers, whether they're firms or people, for their energy bill.
Yeah. It's good to break that down. Just to come back to what you said about not asking people so much in terms of sacrifices, but even what is being asked of people already seems to be getting pushback. If you look at Italy and Sweden, there are some populist forces that seem to be on the rise. Are you expecting a lot more political resistance to this European push for solidarity this winter?
So first, let me come back on one thing. We are asking a lot of people because the energy bill is high, and we know, all of us know that, which is why there are energy shields and shelters to protect people who have difficulty paying their energy. It's a basic need. So I think we all are very conscious that this is a big sacrifice, and we wish to protect people against that sacrifice to make it minimal. It's in terms of energy savings that I think we can all do something, all of us, and that is something that we will need to do for the transition anyway and for climate.
Let's talk a little bit about the Franco-German tandem. How do you see that in broad terms? Because, of course, now we can see some of the fractures in Olaf Scholz's coalition. We can see that President Macron doesn't have the majority he had in his first term. Does all of this take some steam out of this locomotive, do you think?
So sometimes I think you media see things through the black light rather than the light light. You can do it the other way around, right? It's the first time for a long time that a German chancellor has actually spoken in a long speech about his vision for Europe. And luckily enough, it sort of matches President Macron's vision first. Second, both the president, the French president, and the German chancellor do not face any national election for the next 3 years. That gives them a very long period of time to build up, consolidate, and expand the Franco-German relationship. So you could say that we've never been in such a good position.
When it comes to this summit in Prague on October the 6th on the European political community, they don't see eye to eye on the question of enlarging the European Union, though, do they?
They don't, you're right, because on the details, I think in the terms of reforming the governance of an enlarged Europe, there can be dissension, but that's good, right? It's good that they discuss, it's good that they can express what is different, and it's good that at the end we can converge towards a solution that's agreeable to both parties.
We'll have to end it there. Thank you so much, Laurence Boone, Secretary of State for European Affairs in the current government of President Emmanuel Macron. And that's all we have time for now, but we'll be back after a short break with our debate, so don't go away.